Welcome back to New Amsterdam Radio, the podcast for creatives with desire. Flobo Boyce, the mayor in the mayor's office, speaking with people who are doing the things for the community and us as well, newamsterdam.com. And well, I'm being joined by, once again, one of my favorite friends of all time, Dr. Oliver Phillips. How's it going, sir?
Very good. I'm excited to be back with you. It has been probably about 2 months, but it has been great. And, it has the online course has been going great, and so we are doing a great job, and I'm enjoying the great weather in Texas, man. Still waiting to get my Texas boots, but
it's 38 degrees here in Los Angeles right now. But as always, Dr. Phillips Nadler, this time being joined with a brother in educational arms, can I say it, Dr. Sherwin Ramey. How's it going, sir?
It's great, and I count it a privilege to be a part of this broadcast. I'm looking forward to the conversation that we are going to have. And I love your work, so it really is an awesome opportunity to be a part of this broadcast today.
We also have the connection. I'm West Indian American, and you guys are West Indian as well. I love the fact that we can talk about the diaspora. But today, the more pressing issue is that you guys have worked together on a fantastic book. It's called "Come Let Me Bless You: Ministry Built on Love for People." Talk about that. I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot to say I have content, but content that matters is something that's super important. Dr. Ramey, let me start with you. How did everything come together?
What I would say is that I have been a member of staff of the Community Missionary Baptist Church here in Texas. Mm-hmm. The church operates in two locations, two cities, City of DeSoto, the city of Cedar Hill. And this ministry is led by a very charismatic leader in the person of Dr. Oscar Dion Epps, Jr., Senior. We found ourselves what I would call at a very, very intriguing and interesting point in the history of the church. And I really am grateful that I had the opportunity to come on staff when I did. And I got to see firsthand how this church has grown over close to 3 decades. The church now boasts somewhere in the vicinity of about 3,500 active members, multi-million-dollar budget. But what I was very impressed by is the way the church was impacting community here and communities abroad. And when Dr. Phillips came on staff, we believed it was time for us to chronicle this into a book format.
Oh, that's great. I mean, Dr. Phillips, same question for you. I mean, the idea of making this book happen, it's a story that needed to be told. When did we decide to make this to print the page?
Yeah, and one of the things as you get through the book, you would find that I juxtapose two ideas, and one is the history of the pastor and the congregation, and the history of the Black church in America. It is an intriguing history, and as you put those two things together, I got on staff in July of this year, and I was just fascinated by this young man. I call him a young man because he's 55 years old. and the thing is, he can preach, he can sing, and he can love on people. And I look at him in the pulpit, and every now and then I would hear, "Come, let me bless you." And whenever you hear that, you knew he was getting ready to mess with you. You knew he was getting ready to bring in some thought, some grand idea, some thought. But the guy is a genius in terms of churchmanship and in terms of leadership, as Dr. Ramey will talk about. But I just felt that this was a story that had to be told.
Right.
The story of a Black man in a suburban community bringing about what God had led him to do. And so I just it was a story waiting to be told. And I'm just glad that I collaborated with Dr. Ramey, and I told him about it, and he said, "Man, that's a great idea." So he is responsible for everything.
I can't wait to talk about the legacy of Dr. Epps, but I have a question for you, Dr. Phillips. The idea, though, you just mentioned, you juxtapose this story, this ministry here in Texas, with the entire history of the Black church. What was the reason behind that, to have those two parallels happening in this book?
Mainly because the Black church the Black sacred cosmos could be identified as the activist arm of the civil rights movement. I am convinced that there would never have been a civil rights movement without the Black church. So the Black church was integral as the womb in which a lot of our black leaders were born. And our black leaders have kept the fires burning in terms of justice and in terms of civil rights. And I think that on the one hand, you see a macrocosm, the black church in America, and the microcosm could be identified as this community missionary Baptist church that is activist in their agenda and their missional objective. So I think I just had to do that to bring those two things together.
In my experience, I thought it was pretty great because someone who may not know Dr. Epps' story, which we'll get to in just a second, I thought it was kind of cool. You gave me an on-ramp, right? Like I'm black, I go to church. Let's see how that works for me. And I was into that world.
That's
so
right.
Like that.
That's right. Yeah.
Dr. Ramey, Pastor Epps has seen and done a lot. We talked about his story. It's chronicled in the book. What was the thing that drew you specifically? Was there a particular moment for you? Was it just kind of you looking back and going, "Wow, he climbed the highest mountain"? What made you go that the book is the best way to go about talking and sharing his legacy?
And I think that's a very, very, very foundational question, and I'll tell you why. When I first came to community, I searched for a place where I believe I could go and have what I would call healthy worship. And that was basically it. I was working in the corporate environment at the time, and so I got there and realized that when this man would preach, he was more pragmatic, very practical, and he had a genuine concern for what I would call matters of social injustice. That got my attention because I have been an activist for a number of years. And so I said, you know what, I think I could be here. One thing led to another, and I left the corporate job and I came on staff.
Wow.
And what really continued to grasp my attention and still does today is the impact he has had on the communities. The demographics here are very interesting because we are in what you will call the suburbs. People drive in to come to these churches, especially the church that is in Cedar Hill. But he has been able to impact the communities wider out of where the church is, and that got my attention. The pandemic really showed how very concerned he was for the plight that many people were suffering with. And that really is still who he is. He has a genuine love for people that I have not seen, and I have been around the church for most of my life from a pastoral perspective. And he doesn't talk about it much, but he does it. He does it. And so we are a church that is located in the suburbs, but we are a church that is impacting the inner city system. Also, I was very impressed with what he has been able to do in terms of his influence in the political environment. He's not silent on anything that impacts, whether positively or negatively, on the livelihood of people. And that really has been what I would call a very strong trait that he continues to display up to this day. It is who he is.
Yeah, that's very, very insightful. So 2 chapters you put pen to paper on, focus on the Epps School of Ministry and Dr. Epps' leadership. And if I can do a quote here, tell me more about the extraordinary people providing services aspect of the ministry, where the foundations are listed as teaching will prepare, learning will prevail. I thought was a pretty cool idea.
That's Dr. Ramey.
Well, what happened is that I have been in education, served administratively at college level for many years, have been in as faculty, tenured faculty. And when I came here, we had a good educational program, but one of the things that we realized is that we wanted a program that would be more robust and more pointed. And so we sat and we discussed what can we do now that will establish a program that would not just be addressing Bible-based teaching. We want people to be more holistic in their worldview. We want people to understand that there's a psychology in the way we do things. There's a social side in the way we do things. We wanted a holistic push. And so coming out of that, the whole idea of extraordinary people comes out of the thought that when you come to our church, you see extraordinary people is part of the conversation. Where God uses ordinary people to do extraordinary things. And so for us, I looked at the acronyms for his name, I believe that we should have caused everything that we do to be built on his legacy. And so he was not, I had to convince him because he did not want to be placed out there like that.
Yeah.
But I said, if we start educating our people, we want the education to bring them from ordinary to extraordinary. And whatever we do, because he's a service-oriented person, we want the ministry educational push to cause persons to provide services. So it's other-centered. And that's the whole idea of the name. I also believe strongly that if you we got to properly dichotomize qualification and education. Because people push for the qualification, but qualification is not really what we wanted to push for. We want people to, the qualification must be informed by how it lives out from an educational standpoint.
Right.
So the whole idea of what education will do and how it fleshes out is what caused us to use and pen those words. And that is where we are at. We are seeing how impactful this is. School is not just operating here in the United States. By virtue of these mediums, the school is now in India, Kenya, throughout South America, the Caribbean. And that was not what we thought would have happened when we started. Short space of time, we have pushed into places that we know God had to be opening those doors for us.
Yeah.
Dr. Phillips, we talked about this the last time we were on the Amsterdam Radio about the changing nature of education. As this educational thing has grown, what have you seen change post-pandemic? Just tastes of people looking and acquiring information and knowledge. What's that been like for you?
Oh, that's for me?
Yeah.
I think what we have seen is that the pandemic has accelerated certain initiatives that the church had taken before. Not just this congregation, but many congregations. The virtual community is growing, and the virtual community has always been significant to the church. But the pandemic has accelerated that initiative in the sense that now people are realizing that this virtual community is real. And so it has also been translated to education, as Dr. Ramey has attested to, that now we are realizing the importance of online education, that people, because of social distancing and because of other protocols that we have to observe in the midst of the pandemic, I think that online learning is significantly important, and it will play a very important role post-pandemic.
Sure. Dr. Ramey, it's a kind of an awkward question, but I have to ask. When you were showing out drafts to stakeholders in Epps family, what was the feedback you got, if anything? What did they say when they were going through the leaves of your chapters?
And it was mentally taxing at times. This was new, and whenever you are introducing a new initiative that crosses what we'll call traditional boundaries, there will always be misconceptions. There would always be some perceptions that are based on what I would call antiquated thinking. But we had to prove in many instances that this would make sense. As we put the board together and we got the stakeholders together, we had to have hours of showing the validity in what we were trying to do. And now we have the power of hindsight, and we can look and say, you know what, this was a good move. But the process is not always easy, but I always, embrace the thought that nothing meaningful in life comes easy, and you got to push to make some things happen.
I was in Florida when the accreditation took place. I think it was the 18th of June or something, and Dr. Ramey called me and he says, "Man, this was tiring because they put the school through the ringers." And it was a very good process. And I think one of the things that Dr. Epps is proud of more than anything else is this whole idea of Epps School of Ministry that can prepare students for tomorrow. And so I think that we have an opportunity here in Texas and beyond to be able to prepare ministers and church leaders in a way that is very significant. And I think we'll make a mark. But the whole idea of the book is that this Dr. Epps is an ordinary pastor that is doing extraordinary things, but we just felt the story had to be told. And it is good for seminarians and it's good for church leaders to read about it, because it is the story of God's working in the midst of a black church and in the midst of the community, and to make transformative change and lasting change in the community. And I think that's the commitment of the congregation.
Oh, yes. A question for either one of you. How long did it take to put everything together, from the idea, from the drafts to it being on sale? What was the process like? Walk me through that.
The school or the book?
The book, sir.
Ah, okay. Well, the book, the whole idea for the book was that there was a story to be told.
Correct.
And if there's a story to be told, then somebody has to tell the story. The most difficult part for me, because I'm only there 6 months, so it was a question of, I could not have done it without Dr. Ramey, because he was there before I got there. But I did some of the interviews, and he did some of the interviews, and it was an effort that we had. But I had to depend on him, because he knew much more than I, So any mistakes in the book is his. But he can more address the fact when I told him, hey, let's do a book, and I think he can deal with that.
Yeah, Dr. Ramey, what was the timeline like? Was it months with sleepless nights?
I think it probably took us about 4 months.
Yeah.
To put it together, to find our draft. The interview process, it would not always flow smoothly, because you had to have scheduling and all of that. Yeah. However, in terms of the content, I basically knew what we needed to have in the book, because I saw it in my day-to-day interaction with our pastor.
Yeah.
What made it easy in terms of the timeline is that our pastor is easily accessible. He has a lot going on, but for his staff, he will make the time. And when you get him, you have to get as much out of him at that moment, because he is very, very, very engaged in so many other things. I think with Dr. Phillips coming in, he was able to easily integrate himself into how the staff functions, the structure that our pastor has. And so for him meeting with people, doing the interviews and stuff, that it took some time, but it took us probably about 4 months. From beginning to where we are at now to get this.
And I was totally amazed by the fact, Flo, that almost to a person, when I would always ask people, now give me one word that really defines the guy.
Okay, yeah. That's
and across the board, it was just this love for people. This guy doesn't ask the second question.
Yeah.
He hears the first, and his thing is, if you are in need, if you come to him, he is going to make sure that he listens and he acts right away. He does not need a second opinion. He just says, this is the right thing to do. Let's do it.
I'm not the most best on the path, but I always look to the story of Enoch, how he just wanted to listen. He wanted to walk and listen, to talk about, think about what his family could do, what he could do better as a person. So I always love that as well. Just another question about the leadership of Dr. Epps. Dr. Ramey, this one's for you. I know we could talk about the legacy of the man, but those who may not be familiar with Dr. Epps, is there something in particular about his leadership style that we can always attest to or try really hard, not to emulate, but to put that for our own toolkits while we go on and manage other people and other projects?
Yeah. Well, what I would say is that what I'm about to say, it's difficult for me to see someone trying to duplicate the way he does what he does.
That's right.
It's a paradigm based on love. And that is not always easy to do, because there's a cost to it. But he is willing, he has paid some prices, still is, but he still does it because it's intrinsic in who he is. And so the whole idea of a love leadership paradigm is one that says people before self. And that is what I've seen with him. So the ministries are built on people. We have a feeding program that we have been doing just before the pandemic. We were getting some funding, the money dried up. And I never forget him saying, we have to feed the people. We have this meeting with staff, and so the person who coordinates it says, well, Pastor, the money is not coming from the government anymore. He says, well, we don't need their money to feed people. Let's find out. We have never stopped. We do this all the time. We have thousands of people coming through all the time. And what he believes is that if you cannot outgive God, so let's just take care of the people.
That's right.
In terms of the day-to-day operations with us as staff, he has very high expectations. Because for himself, he also has high expectations. So he takes care of his staff. And that is because of this whole love paradigm. He takes care of us financially and otherwise. He is there for us. So you find yourself in a position as a member of staff where you're saying, I feel a sense of moral obligation to reciprocate this. So it's a different approach to leadership where it's not, I need you to do, and he gives you this long job description.
That's right.
He said, if you love people,
come on.
I should not have to come and tell you what needs to be done. Everything that we do is more other-centered. And that is something that I see very central in his approach to leadership.
And I think one of the things that I really admired in terms of the lead, and this happened just a few weeks ago. I walked into a certain room and I saw the pastor stacking chairs, and he was just pulling chairs out of a room. And I heard all the noise and the commotion, and I walked out there and I said, Pastor, you need not be doing this. You have enough people that. And he says, no, I show people what to do. I work with them. I make sure that I work with them. So that whole concept of servant leadership, I think, is a part of his nature. In other words, leaders serve, and leaders are not to be served. And I think that characterizes the type of person. And of course, all through the book, and of course, let me just mention, the book is available on Amazon
right now,
$14.95, 154 pages, and it's available both in Kindle and in softcover. And of course, this Sunday after church, the book is going to be available. And it's a nice cover, and the pastor looks good on the cover.
Is that a guarantee? Oh, there's a cover right there. If you can hold that up, Dr. Amy, just real quick. There it is. Come, Let Me Bless You. Available now on Amazon. That was smooth, Dr. Phillips. Well, just shifting gears a bit, you have a bit of a treat included. It's a poem, also called Let Me Bless You by Reverend Catherine Smith. I'm reading an excerpt here for those who haven't read it already. It goes, sometimes so rough the pilgrimage, the burden's heavy weight, but it's only temporary until I reach that heavenly gate. I think that works lockstep with serving in your community. It's pretty cool, the fact that this poem encapsulates everything. Decision to include this one in the book. This is for whoever decided. Dr. Phillips, Dr. Ramey? Decision to put
the Reverend Catherine is such she's such a great person, and she does everything. And Dr. Ramey can best talk to her because she works with him much more closely.
Yeah, well, she's my logistics and IT support person for the school, but she's also a very good writer. And so when we were talking about putting the book together, she has written several poems and stuff like that. She is able to compose and articulate on the spot. Yeah. It doesn't take her long. If I said I need something done in any area, but when it comes to this whole area of poetry, I believe she's gifted. And so when Dr. Phillips says, I need for you to write this, I think within 24 hours she had it done.
That's right.
And there was no need to make changes with it. She had it done. And she has been a member of the church. I met her when I got here. She came out of corporate. She was a big executive at Chase Bank. And she came into the church and she came to serve. And so she is brilliant, sharp mind. And when she put these words together and I read it, I said, well, there's nothing left for us to say,
That's right. That's right.
She has a feel. She knows the pastor well. So she when she wrote this, there was nothing about this that was short of a genuine gratitude type expression of who he is as a person.
Yeah.
What I thought was interesting, as someone who's maybe not familiar with the ministry of Dr. Epps, the book does read like a community project. There is some history. There are some things that are happening now and looking forward to the future and having a poem there. It's almost like a variety show. You can see the different part of that patchwork. So I enjoyed it thoroughly. I thought it was pretty amazing that you decided to put that in the top of the book. It was pretty nice. Dr. Phillips, one more question for you.
Yeah.
Now, I know we talk about building legacies, but is there works for a sequel? Are you going to start nudging people to have another round of interviews for part two?
I tell you what. I tell you what is most exciting. The most exciting part of the book was, to me, was the whole idea of mentorship. What Dr. Epps has done with this young man is chapter 6 in the book. This Austin, Jeremiah Austin, a young man who is 21 years old, and I sat down to interview him because his father is deceased. And Dr. Epps has taken that guy. He told me, he says, my first paycheck from this church, I was 13 years old when I got a paycheck from this church. And Dr. Epps has mentored this young man. So that was exciting to me, the way Dr. Epps has taken that role. And I articulated some of the philosophies of mentorship. So I think my next book might be this whole idea of mentorship. And there's something that's burning on the inside. And that's a book about not Howard Thurman, but there's a guy that took the place that was there before Martin Luther. In that church. I'm going to write a little about him. So that's my next book.
Yeah, I love it. And Dr. Amy, final question for you. The people are going to read this book, Come Let Me Bless You, Ministry Built on Love for People. And it might be a little bit more adoration for Dr. Epps and what he's working on. What's the best way to connect with them or that ministry, or if they want to help out, even though they may be outside of Texas? How do they go about doing that?
That's great. That's good. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to even share this on this platform. People can go to communitymbc.org. That's the church's website. And we are also on Facebook and YouTube. You just put in Community MBC on YouTube or My Community MBC on Facebook, and all the information will, of course, is generated. A person can also go on the church's website and purchase the book. The book is there. So the book is there for purchase. But we have a huge online following. We have also an online membership that is growing exponentially, and so that's a good medium for people to connect. We have a program on Monday night called Strike Back that also gives people the opportunity to connect with us.
Good.
Come Let Me Bless You, Ministry Built on Love for People, available now on Amazon and online. Make sure you do read a copy and let these authors know what you feel. Dr. Phillips, Dr. Amy, such a pleasure being on UAM Radio, the podcast for creative thinkers and doers. Any final words before we get out of here today?
I just want to thank you for the opportunity, man. I'm loving how you put your broadcast together. As I said to you off air, you got the radio voice. I was talking to Dr. Phillips, and there are a couple of projects that we have, and I would hope that we'll get an opportunity to come back and be a part of what you're doing. I really pray that God will bless what you're doing, and this will grow way beyond your wildest dreams.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
It was really a joy. So just look forward. Make sure you get a copy of the book. It's a great book. Give somebody a gift for Christmas, and look forward for the next book that's going to be coming out. It's a book on Vernon Johns, the predecessor to Dr. Martin Luther King at that church. So, hey, it's a joy, Flobo. Enjoy your Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and Happy New Year.
Yes.
Thank you.
Take care. Well, I'm so glad you had a chance to join us for that podcast. And so let me just say that the book will be available this Sunday after the service at both our Beltline campus and our Cedar Hill campus. So you can get a copy of the book. It's $15. It's the signed copy, autographed by both Dr. Remy and myself. You can get that book on campus at $15, or you can go to Amazon, and the book is on there for $14.95. And the book is also available through the church website, communitymbc.org. If you go to that website, you can also purchase the book. But hey, please get a copy of this book. This is a tremendous asset to your library. And in terms of leadership development, I think you will find it to be a tremendous book. So get a copy of that book. Come Let Me Bless You, a ministry built on the love for people. God bless you.